All right, everybody, welcome back to Historic Conditioning. Today we're going to talk about shoulders. I hear a lot of questions, help me fix my shoulders, why are my shoulders hurting, that kind of thing. And we can talk about that, and I will in the next couple of videos, but I wanted to back up a little bit first and talk about what the shoulder is first and why we tend to hurt it in the sports that we do. It might seem obvious, like, oh, well, you fight. Well, yeah, sure, but why exactly does that happen? We can't approach how to fix a shoulder until we understand what's going on. And I say this now, like I say this at the beginning of all my videos, anytime you find any piece of information, especially on a YouTube video, make sure you do your homework. You take that information for yourself and use it to go find out how it applies to you specifically, okay? That being said, what is the shoulder and why is it that what we do, it tends to get hurt? The shoulder is, well, it's a joint, right? Well, yes and no. It's essentially two and a half, really. So the shoulder joint is technically called the glenohumeral joint. Connects your humerus to inside of your scapula, inside of a bunch of other things. It is technically a ball and socket joint, like your hip is, right? You've got the ball end of your femur, and it fits into your hip here, like this, right? Swings around. The glenohumeral joint is sort of a ball and socket. It's got a very thin ball, and it's really more like a bunch of stuff held together by a bunch of rubber bands, really, than anything else. So you've got your delts, which kind of do this motion here and protects the four other muscles and a bunch of other delicate stuff that fit inside and underneath here that form what we call the rotator cuff, right? So the rotator cuff, we've heard that word before, it's not a thing, it is a confluence of other delicate things that need to all be in balance in order to work properly, and that's how you can hurt that. You're hurting the rotator cuff when one other piece gets out of alignment or gets into trouble, and then it just kind of cascades. On top of that joint, there is a sliding joint called the scapulothoracic joint, which glues your shoulder blade, right, which is the thing that your humerus is attached to your back, and allows it to slide up and down in all kinds of crazy positions. And so what we get out of this joint is a complex of crazy stuff, again, rubber banded to other stuff, to create this incredibly mobile joint that is, while mobile, not exactly very stable, right? It's one of the oldest problems in engineering. How do you create something that is both stable and flexible at the same time? Anybody who's a fan of Damascus steel can get that reference, right? So that is what the shoulder is. And in order to function properly, ideally, it is all in balance with itself. And what does in balance mean? Well, in this case, it means that all of the muscles are working together as they should in the idealized form of the shoulder. So it's important to keep in mind that when we're talking about how the shoulder should work, we're kind of working towards, again, this like textbook definition of shoulder, the Michelangelo's David of shoulders, which doesn't necessarily exist in reality, right? We all age, we all suffer under gravity, we all suffer under doing the things we normally do, so our shoulders are always going to be shaped to how we live our lives. And so it becomes this almost Sisyphean kind of trek up the mountain of wellness to get this crazy complex joint to function as properly as it can for as long as we want it to be. So that is what the shoulder is. But why then, why specifically in this kind of historical sport, combat stuff that we do, why does it get hurt? And there are three major reasons that I can think of, okay? One is poor mechanics, which is physically putting your body into a bad place in the first place, okay? Number two is overuse patterns, right? And we'll talk about that in a second. And the third is movement through trauma, okay? So number one, physically putting your body into a bad position, and there are two big examples that I can think of. This position is overextension of the shoulder. This kind of goalpost kind of position is a bad place for your shoulder to be. Yeah, any fitness professional will tell you you don't want to do a lot of heavyweight lifting from this position. It's bad. Does this look like anything to you guys? Some crazy kind of Westy, loopy behind the shoulder business. Maybe I'm blocking behind my head. This is a terrible position, and in some disciplines, we encourage or train from this position. Again, it's not inherently bad in and of itself, but we are putting it into a compromising position, and then sometimes we don't take care of it when we're done. And I'll get to that in a second. Second example, we see this like kind of Eastern U.S. styles, this kind of A-frame, or in historical examples, right? Sword and buckler, you'll see these manuals, these guys are here, right? They're getting away from, they're presenting defense, they're doing all kinds of business. This inherently now creates a lot of issues. We're creating altered length tension relationships, which we've talked about before. These muscles are too short, these muscles are too long, and because the body is really good at adapting itself to do the thing better over time, we put ourselves in this position and then it just gets stuck here in order to do this better. Makes sense? So those are two major examples of how we in our sport inherently put ourselves in bad positions and then ask our body to do things repetitively over time, which brings me to number 2, repetitive use injuries. This very simple movement combined here like this on a mouse pad, 40 hours a week, you may develop carpal tunnel syndrome. It's such a simple movement, and yet it can create injury, overuse injuries. And this part is kind of self-explanatory, right? So I'm here and I'm fighting, or I'm here, I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and it's overuse, and we don't put it away when we're done. I'll come back to that phrase, putting it away when we're done, because that's really what we're talking about here. The third example of how we can exacerbate issues is fighting through trauma. Okay, what is trauma? Well, injury or a host of other things that fit under the trauma basket. The body tends to respond by inflammation. Inflammation is nature's way of kind of creating a sling for itself, creating stability when stability is needed to restrict mobility so that your shoulder or whatever else is harmed can heal. It's not the best system, but it's the system that we have. So what happens then, because we are humans with self-agency, we want to keep doing the thing even though we're injured. We've got inflammation, okay, so we're creating an altered system in, let's say, our shoulder, and we're fighting around that. We're like, no, it'll be okay, it doesn't hurt when I just kind of do this. Not true. You're only making it worse. So what is important to take away from these couple of concepts is that your form might be fine. It is inherently what we are doing that creates issues in the first place. Okay, so that bears repeating. It is not like, oh, I'm going to fix this one shot and I'll be great. No, what we are doing is inherently degrading our shoulders. And that's okay, because that's what life is, right? The farmer's going to have a bent over back. The dentist is going to have, there's all kinds of professions in life. Our life is a slow degrading of our bodies, and that's just how it is. So what the key is then is putting our bodies back. What does that mean? Any car enthusiast, any machine enthusiast will tell you the best way to take care of your stuff is to clean it and put it away when you're done. And that is what we don't do. We don't put our shoulders back before we put them away, so that when we take them out again, they are clean and ready to go. And that's what the next couple of videos are going to be about. We're going to break down exactly how to put our shoulders back before we take them out again, so that we can fight and be effective for as long as we want to be. Okay, stay tuned. See you next time.